Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are doing part 7 of the Secret Stitches Cal 2021, the Drunken Granny Square. To make the Drunken Granny Square, you can use the same yarn you are using for your other squares. I am using Savor from Ice Yarns. It is a 4-weight worsted acrylic. I'll be using a 6mm crochet hook for the square and a 7mm crochet hook just for the chain. If you're having a hard time finding a 7mm crochet hook, I will put a link to them in the description box down below. You can grab them on Amazon. You'll also need 8 stitch markers. You don't need the stitch markers, but they really do help making sure that you have the right stitch count as you're working into your chain. You'll need a needle for sewing in your ends later and a pair of scissors. So let's get started. Using your large crochet hook, your 7mm. If you don't have a larger hook to make your chain, just chain really loosely. And we're going to start by making a slip knot any which way that we normally do. Leave a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Shrink that down and put it onto your hook. Now we're going to chain multiples of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now take your stitch marker. Now if you roll your chain onto its side, you can see these little bumps along the back, the little camel bumps or the back loops. So we want to put our stitch marker right into that last back loop, right underneath our working yarn. Just right there, just here. So pop in your stitch marker. If you have a hard time working into your back loops, you can work into your front loop. It's just a bit easier because there's only one back loop, and on the front, of course, there's 2 loops, and you can get confused on where your actual stitch count is. So working into the back loops helps with that. So chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And one more stitch marker right into that loop just underneath your working yarn. So now keep working along like this, doing sets of 5 chains with a stitch marker into the 5th chain until you have used up all your stitch markers or you have chained 40. When you have chained your 40, it will look like this, and you have your 8 stitch markers in place. And that is when we're going to switch hooks. So take your 7mm hook or your larger hook and put it far away. We don't want to grab it by accident. Get your 6mm hook and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now wrap your yarn, and we're going to go right into that 5th stitch. So we're going to skip the 4 stitches we just made and into the 5th stitch, right where our stitch marker is. We're going to put our hook in and make 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2, and one more double crochet into that same space or that same stitch. Now we're going to jump straight over, so we're going to skip 4 stitches and into the chain where our stitch marker is. We're going to wrap our yarn and make the same block, so 4 double crochets into the same stitch as your stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2, and one more double crochet into that same stitch, the same chain. Jump over to where your next stitch marker is, so skip 4 chains and work into the 5th chain. Wrap your yarn and 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. chain 2, and 1 more double crochet into that same chain. So skip 4 chains and work into the 5th stitch right where your stitch marker is. Put a block, so 4 double crochets, chain 2 and 1 double crochet, all into that same chain. There's 2 double crochets, 3, here is 4, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into that same chain. Just like that. So now keep working your way along, making a block into every stitch that has a stitch marker, or every 5th stitch, all the way along, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. When you reach the end of your chain, we have 4 chains left. We're going to make 1 double crochet right into that last chain. 1 double crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Now a tip on how to turn your work so your stitches are always facing the right way when you're working into your chain is reach underneath your yarn, grab your work, and flip it. And that will keep your chain the right way around, or the easiest way to work into when you're working into your chain at the end of your rows. So working into this very first space, we're going to work into these spaces all the way along our chain 2 spots. So it'll really pick up speed now and work nice and quickly. So into this chain 2 spot, we'll make our block. Blocks are 4 double crochets, a chain 2, and 1 double crochet. So there is my 4th double crochet, chain 2, and 1 more double crochet into that same space. So now we're just going to jump along and into each of the next chain 2 spaces. All the way along, we're going to be doing the same block of 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. So into the next block, just find that chain 2 space and 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same space. So pause the video and keep working along your row, doing a block into each of these spaces, each of the chain 2 spaces. Blocks are 4 double crochets, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. So you're going to be doing that into each of these chain 2 spaces all the way along. So pause the video and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. So now to finish your row, we're always going to be doing the same thing. So right after your block, after that last double crochet, no chaining, we're just going to wrap our yarn. So here's our last double crochet. So this is the top of our last double crochet. We don't want to work in there. We want to go into the first chain, so it's that next stitch right here. So wrap your yarn, go into the top of your chain 3 and make 1 double crochet. So that is the end of our row. So the repeat, we always start our row with a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Reach under your yarn, grab your work, and turn. And into every chain 2 space, we're going to do a block of 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2. And 1 more double crochet into that same space. And we're going to do that into each chain 2 space all the way along our row. So each space, each chain 2 space gets a block of 4 double crochets, 2, 3, and 4, a chain 2, and one more double crochet into that same space, just like that. So pause the video and keep working along, making 4 double crochets, a chain 2 and 1 double crochet into each of these chain 2 spaces all the way along your row, and I'll meet you when you have finished your last block. At the end of your row, after we've done our last block into our last chain 2 space, so now at the end of our row, we're going to go right into the top of the chain 3, and because we turned our work the way that we did, this stitch, the chains are facing us nicely, so we just poke our hook right on top of that bottom loop and slide our hook in, and that is going to be the top of our chain 3. So wrap your yarn and into the top of the chain 3, 1 double crochet. And that's how you're going to finish every row. So keep working until you have completed 20 rows. To count your rows, just look at these little blocks and just kind of go up on a zigzag. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keep going until you have 20 rows completed. After your last double crochet on your last row, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Into the very first space, the very first chain 2 space, make 1 single crochet. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and into the next chain 2 space, 1 single crochet. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into the next chain 2 space, 1 single crochet. So pause the video and keep working along, doing a chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 single crochet into each chain 2 space all the way along the top of your square. So pause the video and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. After your last single crochet into that last chain 2 space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So working into the top of our chain 3, we're going to make 1 single crochet. 1 single crochet and chain 1. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I love this stitch so much. I'd love to see yours. You can tag me over on Instagram at Secret Yarnery or on Facebook, The Secret Yarnery. And you can even join our group over on Facebook, the Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. That's another great place to upload your photos so we can see how your square turned out. So have a super great day. Thanks for hooking along. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you in the next video. Stay hooked.